of all the occupations that you've had,
Yes.
which one was your favorite?
My favorite, I learned much, much later, my favorite was my performing career. I did not know when I did my last show 3 years ago that I was a hopeless addict. And I was an absolutely hopeless addict. But when you are suddenly without a career, particularly in performing, and you're at home all the time and the phone is not ringing, it's absolutely horrendous to no longer have applause in your life. And I was hopelessly addicted to applause. I have been in no situation since in those 3 years where someone hollers my name over the loudspeaker and I come out on stage and 3 or 5 or 7 or 1,400 people applaud. I've never had occasion since then to sing a song and have 900 people stand up and applaud and scream. And that part was a horrible thing to get over. To suddenly be at home and nobody gave one crap whether I walked into the next room and sang a song. You know, the woman I was living with tried very hard to appease me. I'd come into the room occasionally humming a number and she'd go, "Yay!" It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same at all. But I was blessed in that my last show I did not know was my last show. It's not like the situation I'm in now. I know a lot of things that I'm doing are going to be the last time that I do them because I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
In my career, I didn't know 3 years ago that last show I did on that cruise ship just before I was put off the ship in San Juan, Puerto Rico to fly home because my gig was over, didn't know that was the last one. So I didn't have all that emotion going into it of taking 30 years with me and saying, "This is my last time to do this." I didn't have any of that. So that was a gift that I didn't know I was giving that up. I had so many jobs. I spent literally 20 years after high school bouncing from one half-ass job to another. I drove the Amherst Senior Citizens van, which was lovely. Met some wonderful people who were well advanced in years and died on me all the time. I spent time at the Florence Casket Company in the 70s, upholstering caskets. And it was the bicentennial year, so naturally we had a lot of red, white, and blue casket linings to put in, decorated with flags, and it would be a crossed 50-star flag with a Betsy Ross flag, with, and we'd put that in the headliner above the poor guy's face. I worked at a funeral home in Worcester for a year and a half. I was an apprentice embalmer. Well, I was only an apprentice embalmer because that paid a little better. What they really needed was somebody. I had a room there, and I stayed there and slept there in the funeral home, because they needed somebody to answer the phone in the middle of the night from a local hospital. Now, we had 17 hospitals in Worcester, and all but 2 of them had refrigerated morgues. So it was fine. If somebody died in the middle of the night, they'd set them in the morgue, and we'd go get them in the morning. But if anybody from those 2 hospitals called, they had to have somebody on site that said, "Joe Muckenfuss has died. We need you to come pick him up." And they had no cooler, so we had to go pick him up. And that's what I did in the middle of the night. I'd get in the company station wagon and drive over, and somebody would help me put the guy in the back, and I'd take him back to the funeral home, call the embalmer, and say, "I got another one for you." And they'd come in and do what they had to do. But that was my job, was to be there to answer the phone. You couldn't send it to voicemail because they had to come and pick the guy up and get him out of there. So I was the living body at the funeral home for a year and a half to answer the phone. But I had all kinds of jobs, sales jobs. I managed little bitty bus stations. I worked at Peter Pan in Northampton for a number of years, selling bus tickets to people who were in no physical shape to get on a bus. Any driver in their right mind would have refused them service because they were absolutely stinko loaded and would not be put on a bus. But I could not tell them that at the counter. Legally, I had to go ahead and sell them a bus ticket, which put me in some horrible situations because these horrible, rancid, stinking people would come up and say, "Sell me a ticket to Brattleboro." I knew he wasn't getting on the Vermont Transit bus. There's no way the driver was ever going to take him. But I'd have to charge him his $6 or $7 or whatever it was to get on the bus to go to Brattleboro, give him his ticket, tell him when the bus would be there, and watch through the window as the driver refused him service, and the bus would then leave. And then I had this, horrible stinking drunk with a ticket in his hand who wanted a refund. And I said, we don't do refunds. There's an address on the middle of your ticket. You need to send your ticket to this address in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, and wait 3 weeks, and they'll get you a check for $6.75. Well, how well do you think that went over? They wanted that $6 now so they could go back up to the bar and have more. That was the fun part of that job. And of course, at that point, Reagan had just closed the mental hospitals, so we had all those folks running around. We had the average street corner wino coming through all the time, and all of the students in Northampton from Smith College who would come down the opposite hill to the little station at the bottom and buy their bus tickets. It was difficult sometimes to tell them apart, to know which hill they had come down to get to the station, but it made itself clear eventually. Some of the Smith girls were beyond belief, He'd say, I'm just going to write you a check for that. I said, I'm sorry, we can't take your personal check. What do you mean? I write the checks. I know you write the checks. We don't. Think of it from my point of view. You're coming here to buy a one-way ticket to Chicago. You're telling me you're leaving town, and you want to give me a check for $75 for your ticket. No, we're not taking your check so you can then hop on a bus and leave town. That makes no sense from a business standpoint. We need cash. And she'd say, well, you don't understand. I don't do cash. I had one in particular, very memorable.
Well, we don't do checks.
Very memorable woman, a young lady. She came in and said, I don't do cash. I do the checks here. Dad puts the money in the bank at home in Chicago, and then I write the checks here. So I don't do the cash. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. Your bank happens to be, the bank on your check happens to be the same bank that's up there at the top of the hill. You can almost see the neon sign. So take your bag, go up to that bank up there, give them the check, tell them that horrible man down at the bus station won't take your check. They will take your check and give you cash. If you don't want to handle it, they'll put it in an envelope for you. And you can bring it down to me, give me the dirty cash, and I will give you your ticket. Oh, I said, well, that's the way it's going to have to work. So, yeah, I had more than one of those over the years who were very upset that I would not take their personal check to get a bus ticket one way to the opposite end of the country, and couldn't understand why we wouldn't do that. But we finally got it through to them eventually that, I was the bad guy that would not take their check. We solved the problems that we had to solve as they came up, and they were some of them practically unsolvable. Could we get an extra bag on the bus? I want to take more things with. Well, you get 2 bags per ticket. Well, how will I get this other bag? Well, you can, I'll weigh it for you back here. We'll charge you for the. What do you mean charge me? I'm going to be right there with it. Yes, but you get 2 with your ticket. You're not moving. You can't bring 85 boxes down to the station and expect them to all go under the bus with you. Oh, okay. It just, these kinds of things came up all the time.
So, you mentioned you were in your final days.
Yes. I don't know.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, it means to me at this moment, my hospice people, and I can only tell people that we have been gifted here with some of the finest people in the world are working as hospice nurses. They're just wonderful, wonderful people. Do I like them all? No. Have I mentioned that to those in charge? Yes, I have. Because they're all at various stages of their training. I had one charming young woman who's a wonderful little nurse, but she came in and she's very new. And I said I was having trouble with things getting stuck in my throat. I'm having trouble eating. I'm having trouble swallowing. Her advice to me was to sip water and take smaller bites. I'm pushing 70 years old. I know enough to take smaller bites. That's not the answer I was looking for. Okay? When that's the medical advice, I'm not impressed, okay? I'm sorry. And if that makes me picky, I have the means to be picky if I need to be. But anyway, we've worked that out. By and large, my level of service has been absolutely incomparable. And I talked with one of my hospice care workers the other day, and I was wondering if we're looking at weeks left of my life, months left of my life, how much. Because even though I'm leaving, I have a certain number of things that I still would like to do, and I have to know if I need to put it in high gear to achieve this, or do I have time to work this out in a more reasonable fashion, or how much time do I need to devote to putting together the list of people who need to be called right away when I'm gone. Do I have to start writing my obit right now, or can that wait a couple of weeks? Will I still have all of my marbles to do that next month? That kind of thing. And I said, in my mind, I'm looking at, 4 months down the road or whatever. And she said, well, we're hoping to get you through your birthday. Now, at this moment sitting here, my birthday is 5 weeks away, less than that. We've just entered October, and my birthday is in the first few days of November. So that is a whole different mindset. Now, I have no doubt at this moment that I will easily surpass my birthday in a month. They don't know that, and they're looking at the signs and signals and trying to figure it out, and so am I. But, I have things to do. I have arrangements to make.
What are those things?
Well, as I said, there are people that I will want to have on a sheet of paper that don't find out that I'm gone by going on Facebook. It's hurt my feelings over the years to open up Facebook and find somebody's brother saying, well, Sam passed away last night, and having to read that message that impersonally. People that I'm close with, I don't want to have them find out that way. So I have a list of people that I'm making with phone numbers, so that someone in my life who that job will fall to can call them on the phone and say, Brian wanted you to be one of the ones who knows he's passed away in his sleep overnight, or whatever it will be. Who knows? I may survive this whole thing by 6 months and get run over by a bus down on the corner, but I'm in a position of having that choice at this point to let people know. Mm-hmm. I also have very specific ideas about what I want to happen to my remains. Where do I want to be? What are the circumstances? Do I want a big fancy funeral? Do I want to be buried? Do I want to be cremated? I've always told my kids I want to be scattered when I'm gone. Not cremated, just scattered. And that's and that's been hard to arrange.
Yeah.
So,
I'll take an arm.
Whatever. Yeah. Here, you take these parts, and the other girl will get parts down in Texas, and they'll split that up that way. I don't know, but I'm making those kinds of arrangements. Having worked at Florence Casket and it was one of my great-great-grandfather's companies. He was on the board of Florence Casket. So when I'm gone, I'd like to be in one. If it turns out I'm going to have a casket burial, I'd like to have a Florence Casket be my next.
What's your leaning?
My leaning towards what?
Do you want to be cremated?
I never wanted to be cremated.
Never?
Well, I think it's a family thing.
Okay.
No one in my family that I know of, and I know a lot of my family, was ever cremated. For other families, it's a normal thing. Uncle Sam ended up in this little tin box, or we've got him in an urn on the shelf, or whatever. And it's perfectly normal for them. No one in my family was ever cremated, so it was never even considered as an option.
Now, will you be with your mother and father? Will
Dear
it be a separate...
God, no. Oh my God!
I had to ask the question.
Well,
relax, okay?
All right. You're interviewing me, and I respect that. I'm not usually on the interviewee end of these things.
I know,
and I'm familiar with your work in interviewing people, having seen your dashing work with the Maharishi.
You don't have to be such a jerk in the final days, okay?
I've been saving these things up forever. When am I going to use them?
He has.
No, there is a family plot. You'll pardon me while I have another sip of Moxie here to clear my throat. There is a family plot in the North Cemetery in Amherst. We have the northwest corner of that cemetery completely occupied. It is on the street. It faces the street. When you drive by the cemetery on East Pleasant Street, there's a big stone that says Sherman McCullough. It's got my mother, my father, my mother's parents, and my infant sister in it. Every day, taking the bus from Cushman to high school, I had to pass by that lot, staring at me through the school bus window saying, "Go have a day, brother. I'm going to be here whenever you need me. Here I am. This is where you're going to end up." And I vowed then at 16, no effing way, pal. You're not getting me. I don't want to be in that lot. I have no desire to be in that lot. There's plenty of room in that lot. There are probably 6 or 8 graves left in it. I don't know. But they're not getting me.
Where have you decided? Have you made those kind of decisions?
Haven't made final decisions. I've been looking, having been a genealogist for 50-something years.
Yeah.
I know there's an empty plot in Addison, Maine, with one set of my great-grandparents. I thought about that for a very long time. My great-grandmother on my father's side is all by herself in a 3 or 4 grave lot in Northampton in Bridge Street Cemetery. Her husband buried her there in 1929, thinking that he would someday join her. His name is on the headstone. He then went to Brattleboro, Vermont, met a woman the following year, got married, and lived in Brattleboro, Vermont for another 25 years. He was in his 90s when he died. Did she honor his wishes to have him buried in Northampton with his first wife? No. She buried him next to her first husband in Brattleboro, Vermont. So my great-grandmother is all alone in this plot with his name on a stone and his birth year, 1863, and no death year. So anybody walking by would be thinking there's a 150-something-year-old man walking around. He's not. He's buried up the road in Brattleboro. I never wanted to spend the money to get his death year carved on the stone, but he died in the spring of the year I was born. He's been gone for 70 years now. And no one knows, walking by that headstone, where he is or understands the fact that my great-grandma is all by herself and has been since 1929. There's a lot of legalities involved. I don't know who owns the deed to that plot. I don't know who would be responsible, who I would have to ask about getting buried there. And having visited it a few times, I've decided it's not really a place I would want to be. He chose a lot that was close to their home, so it's near the back row of the cemetery, near the chain link fence. And currently, the other side of the chain link fence, the house has been turned into apartments, and there's at least, 3 drunken families of students that live in there. The backyard's a mess. Between the grave plot to the house is this driveway that's just nothing but wrecked cars and empty beer cans. And I don't particularly want to be there. So yeah, I've been going through those possibilities. It looks now that for like Addison, Maine, where my great-grandparents' lot is, or another cemetery in Florence that is complicated, for either of those possibilities to happen, I would have to be cremated. Well, people have talked to me about cremation for quite some time, and I tell them, I've thought about cremation, but I've never warmed up to it.
Okay.
and I don't know whether what decision will be made. My very well-known, very historically significant great-grandfather and his parents are buried in Park Street Cemetery in Florence, Massachusetts. They were among the early founders of Florence. They were a big deal. My great-grandfather was the second mayor of the city of Northampton back in the 1880s. His father was Samuel Hill, who founded Hill Institute. The first free public kindergarten in the country was in his house in Florence. He was a very big deal. There's room in Arthur Hill's family plot, I know, for me to be buried. I know Arthur is there, his wife Kate is there, their first daughter, who never married, is buried there with him. She was the final burial in that plot in 1930. There are also 2 children in there somewhere, a tiny infant that didn't make it, and an aunt of mine, my grandmother's older sister, who lived to be 6 or 7 years old, somewhere in that remaining half of a lot. The city of Northampton requires full vault 2025 standards for burial. They don't want any problems with anybody, popping to the surface or leaching into the watershed or whatever. So in order to have a full casket burial there, I would have to be buying a X number of $1,000 cement vault to put my, hopefully, Florence casket into. And the city does not want to do that because they don't really know where those remaining bodies are in that half of a lot. So they don't want to dig down with a backhoe and come up with a chunk of coffin or a little leg bone or something. So in order to be there at all, I would have to be cremated remains and put in that lot, and it's looking like that's the way it's going to go. In the meanwhile, I have to get over my own fears and prohibitions about cremation.
Yeah.
And that's an effort for me. It's not something I want, but if it's going to be a full casket burial, they're telling me the only option I have is in North Amherst, in my parents' lot. And I have to weigh for myself whether my desire not to be there outweighs my desire not to be cremated. So it's a decision I'm still making.
As the time is passing,
Yes.
when you reflect on your life
Yes.
and your friends,
I haven't thought of you once.
yep, it's you know what? That's okay. It's totally okay.
I'm playing with you.
Who are the people that what's the top tier that and can you say something about each of these people?
Top tier of what?
The people that are your friends, or the people that have stood by you. And I'm thinking of like the people who supported your career, like Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
You had your mom.
Yep. I've had some wonderful support from my peers about my career, the ones who knew of it. Up until just a few years ago, there were a lot of people that had no idea where I was or what I did and really didn't care at all.
Interesting.
As it turned out, the Turners Falls High School had a group of people that was constantly raising funds for them, and one of their things was an annual concert that they had right up the street here, as it turns out, at Turners Falls High School. And those people somehow came across me and wanted to know if I would come and do it. Was an annual show. It's a one-night thing. So they asked me like 2 years in advance, because they were already booked up. So 2 years in advance, I got this contract to come and do this show at Turners Falls High School. And Joyce Phillips was just an amazing support through that whole time. She wanted to know where I was and what my shows were and how things were going, stayed in touch for that whole time, and has been wonderful ever since, telling me that this was just the greatest show they ever had in this whole series. They don't even do them anymore because there's some problem with where the funds will go. The city or whatever it is was not willing to upgrade the equipment anymore at the high school, so there's no place for this. There's no need for this fund anymore, but they've stopped doing those shows. But even now, she stays in touch with locally. And it was close enough that I was able to get the word out to a few people in Amherst that were still in the area that I did go to school with, that I was going to be appearing with my whole big show at Turners Falls High School. How about that? And the number of people that I knew in high school then, 40-something years after school, that came out to the show that night absolutely stupefied me. Lori Drake, Doubleday, and Joanne, and several others. Tom Hankinson showed up. I can't even name them all, and I don't want to start naming names and leave people out. So I'll leave you all out. But it was a good-sized bunch of people that I knew really well, and that's really when I think my group of peers began to understand what I was doing and what my career consisted of, and what I had then been doing for 20 years. I was celebrating my 25th anniversary of being in showbiz or whatever. I don't think they had a real handle on it before then. And they came out to the show, and I did the whole 9 yards. I opened the show the first half doing my Conway Twitty act, had an intermission, made my costume change, did the whole second act of the show as Roy Orbison. Everybody singing along to the songs. I was getting standing O's from the mob. It was a magical night because I was working with my favorite band. I had good, solid people behind me that I'd worked with for years at that point. So the show went over extremely well, and I have a number of pictures that were taken of me with classmates afterwards who wanted their picture taken out in the lobby, which was terrific, just tremendous. So yeah, that part of it, it's only been that number of years really that I felt like anybody that we went to school with knew what the hell I was up to.
I want you, in closing, to tell me the story, tell people who are listening, about the day that your mother discovered that you could sing.
The day my mother discovered I could sing.
So,
I don't know. Remember.
So you were...
You maybe have a different memory
No,
of this
wait a
than I
second.
do.
No, because we've talked about this, and maybe you won't remember. You were singing in the front room,
Yeah.
and your mother had come home.
Yes.
And she said, "Brian, turn down the damn radio."
Yes, she thought...
Do you remember this?
Well, yeah, she was concerned walking up the front walkway in Cushman because it was a short distance to the sidewalk. And she said, coming in, she thought, you either know this stuff or you don't. Why are you playing this Roy Orbison music over and over and over again? And I had to say, Ma, that was me. I was putting together some songs for my act. That's actually when it happened. She had no idea that I was actually singing along to blank recordings of just the music. She thought I was just killing the neighborhood with more damn Orbison songs than they ever wanted to hear. So yeah, there was that moment.
You know, I've never known anyone in my entire life that could whistle
I can't do it anymore.
better than you.
Now, my lips are gone. One of the things my drugs has done is dry me out.
Yep.
To the point where my whistle is history. You'll have to remember it
Yeah.
as a fond memory of me from
But
years
you made
ago.
it so effortless.
Well, I enjoyed whistling. I had odd habits in school. Yes, I whistled. I also spoke backwards. I don't know if you remember my speaking backwards.
Can you do that now?
Something came to me last night. I was farting around here at the house doing something, and I sang "Oh My Darling Clementine" completely backwards. Ho im ginilrad, ho im ginilrad, ho im ginilrad in it na milk. Uirt soldna inagraverof lufteri ros di nitna milk. Nitna milk is Clementine backwards. Yeah.
Well, that's a gift.
An absolutely useless one, but certainly a gift. There's hardly anything in the world that could be classified as less useful.
Truly.
There you go.
Is
and
there
that'll
any-
be my heritage.
Is there anything that you would like to say as I close?
Well, thank you. I would say to you in particular, thank you for your friendship.
The pictures of my choice.
Okay.
Okay. It's been a good life.
You bet.
I love you.
This is me smiling.